How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the weekly trading review for the week of August 11th. This week I had 20 total trades, 19 wins and 1 loss, total profits of $323.83 on my swing trades. I had 5 wins and 0 losses, total profits $308.76. Day trades, 14 wins and 1 loss, total profits $15.07, and then there's no sort of other trades in there. So market this week, if we look at the chart over here, we had a nice little bullish week to start. Had a nice run up from the CPI, and then the market had just sort of compressed and was in an inside day for the rest of the week. So not a lot of action. There is Jackson Hole coming up on next Friday, so we might see some stalling, some pausing in the trend until then. But market likely is going to need to test the 8 EMA, maybe give it another day for it to test and poke, and then rally up. But it's been stalling sideways for the past couple of days after this run up to a new all-time high post CPI. So I'm going to go over the swing trades I took first, and I'm going to start with Google. So I took Google on August 8th over here, and I closed it on the 12th on this leg up higher. So I took it on the 8th. Stock had broken up out of compression, and it had moved up higher. I'm going to put the Google chart up over here on the bottom so we can see. There we go. So made a strong move up, and then it had closed right on VWAP for most of the day. So I ended up buying Google at 201.35. And I was long 45 shares at that price. Next day, if I look at the market and just get this sorted out. So took it on Friday in the close. Market was rallying on it's kind of flat on the 11th here, but Google held up pretty well considering the market sold off at the end of the day. So I added to Google 50% at 201.15, which was kind of right around here. Yep, in the 11.55. So I kind of added it around here when Google had filled in the gap. And if I look at what the market did here, Google had filled in the gap, and the market was finding some support here and made a new high of the day. And then on this strong move up early in the morning, I took partial gains on Google at 203.30. So I took $2 gains overall on the added position. And then I put a stop at my entry at 201.29 since my new average price was 201.28. So ended up getting stopped out over here at the 10:05 candle. Got stopped out over here for a 1 cent gain on the remaining position. So was a nice little win on Google. Obviously, ended up getting stopped out for half, but when the market had this gap up over here and it started to sell off initially, I didn't know if we would have a gap fill to the downside or not. We had this nice long red candle early, and we started to see some tails here, but then we managed to hold half of the gap and rally higher for the rest of the day. So it was really more of a precaution against gap up to new all-time high and then a sell-off. And since it didn't happen, or I guess that happened initially and then it popped up, so ended up kind of getting the worst case on Google, but that's going to happen from time to time. All right. Next trade that I took was Apple. I took this on August 11th. So Apple, really nice breakout through this long-term high minus trend line above the 200-day SMA. It spent a day digesting those gains on the 11th. So got in on Apple on the 11th because I figured that this move would probably retrace, maybe test the 200, but probably get it at around the halfway point of this candle. So I got in on the 11th. Initially a half size at 23 shares at 227.50. So let me go back to this chart. Yep. So I got in basically right here, 227.50, before this long red candle and this move up higher. And then when it's filled in the gap, I added another half at 228.50. So I got in, I think, somewhere over here. So then my average now was a full size at 228. Then the next day, this stock or Apple kind of rallied up here, and then it kind of got smacked down a little bit. And I actually thought, because I had a target out at like 230, so I was just looking to take maybe $2 on Apple. So I was looking to, I thought I'd actually hit this target here, but looks like I was just short by maybe like 6 cents. And then the stock went against me, so I actually thought I'd exited the stock and then kind of chopped around. So I ended up taking small gains at 228.32. So just kind of a tiny profit on this guy earlier in the day. Again, on the notion that I thought, okay, well, if this gap is going to fill to the downside, then I'm going to get out of the position. Because Apple didn't really quite rally as strongly with the market on this gap up. So obviously, did continuing higher here and broke above that prior high at around 231. So missed this one a little bit, but was still able to exit with a little bit of a decent profit. Next trade I took was SOUN, Soundhound. Pretty similar setup in this guy. So this stock on the 11th, massive breakout higher through kind of some downward sloping trend lines here, this upward sloping trend line, and it had also filled in the gap over here, which was at around 1525. So we'd broken a whole ton of support levels. There were a couple of high volume candles coming in over here. You can see around the $16 level here, on this high right here, which was 1661. So some high volume candles coming through here, but was a pretty good overnight setup. So if I look at Sound, yep. So it had basically made this big move up here. This is on the 11th, and then I took it overnight. Pretty much here, I took the 8/22 $14 calls for $2.05 at 3:15. So you can see here's the 3:10 candle. So I got filled pretty much right here. Had a nice little move to the close of the day, and I was targeting 270 on these, which would have put me actually kind of around over here, the 660 range. Just fell just shy earlier in the day, so I got out for it's still a good profit, but it's a little bit smaller profit at $2.50. So it's a 45% gain per contract. And again, the rationale here was same reason. SPY had a gap up and was starting to move down. Sound didn't have a gap up and was trying to push in higher, but was clearly hitting some resistance instead of surging up, which told me that maybe a good time to take profits and get on the sidelines. But yeah, took a nice little win on that guy. And then the last closed swing trade I took was Amazon. So Amazon had this big breakout through compression and testing this gap over here. So this gap fill actually looks like there's a high volume candle here. 234.81. Okay, that's not really as pertinent. This gap fill over here at the close was 234.11. So on Amazon, I had got in the position at 231 near the end of the day as the stock had pulled back to VWAP. So I took at overnight 40 shares at 231, and then at a target of 234, which just got hit right over here. You can see 234.08. So I got filled on that point right before it hit the gap resistance and then had rejected off. It's still looking good on a swing term basis. It is a choppy stock, so you want to get it on dips and then sell into those rips and then reset on the next move. So that was a nice win. Took $3 on Amazon, and that was all of the close swings. So I'm gonna move to the intraday trades now, and I'm gonna pull this up on my tags. So again, with the intraday trades, I am trading one share if otherwise specified. There's some smaller stocks I might trade, like 2, 3, 4 shares as a starter. So I'll call out those caveats when I do. So let me go to the open timestamp here, and we're going to take it day by day. So first day is the 11th. So we're going to pull this up over here. You can see SPY, pretty LPTE day, made a move up to the made a new high of the day. That got rejected. Made a new low of the day. Initially got rejected, and then we sort of sold off here. So kind of a weak move. Not a lot of action going on. So I took 3 trades that day. First one was DUOL, Duolingo. This stock has been a pretty big post-earn bear. Couple of day trades you could have taken in here. So I'm going to zoom back to this on the 11th. Yep, so here it was on the 11th. So I took a day trade short at 10.05 at 357.50. So I got in right here, 357.50. Pull back to the 8 EMA. It tested the low. Pull back again. Tested the low. You can see how the market wasn't really doing anything over here. And then when the market kind of started to get above VWAP over here at 11.45, that's actually when I exited the trade. It was right around here, 11.45. I was up maybe $1 on the position, so I got out at 356.50. Figured, all right, I mean, hasn't really been rallying up to at this point. I mean, it's been holding pretty well, but I was like, market hasn't really been selling off here, so there's a good chance that we push up higher. Maybe Duolingo also pushes up higher and might retest that 200-day SMA. Did not happen. Stock did end up leaking a lot lower, so I did miss that move, but still took $1 on Duolingo on that guy. So happens. Second trade I took on that day was Sound. So I brought that up earlier, and this is actually what prompted me to do a overnight swing. But I saw this setup over here. Stock had made a big move and was pulling back. So I took 3 shares at 15.65. I was long 3 shares. And my plan was to take maybe profits at $16. So, I was like, all right, I can probably get, 30 cents on this guy. That'd be a pretty nice win. So had a little pop up over here. And then on that pop, I did add to the position at 15.85. So my average price was 15.75 at 6 shares. And then the stock pretty much did nothing for the rest of the day. It was just compressing and digesting the gains. The main thing I was watching for in Sound was that this stock was still making higher lows. So when you see this compression as it's slowly making higher lows, that means that buyers are coming in. They're supporting the move. So I know that this is probably going to launch up higher. And then we did get a nice little end of day launch. Here's at 350. And at 355, I had taken gains on this guy at 15.92. So I took an 18-cent gain on a 2x size, so about $1 overall. And that was a pretty nice win for me just because I was holding on to a strong stock that I knew, okay, well, it's going to make a push up higher as long as this stock kind of just holds up over here. And that's what happened at the end of the day. So what I've noticed is that the stocks that make these strong moves initially, right, in the first hour, and then they spend 4 hours just compressing, they might make a push at the end of the day when the volume starts to come in, and some of those gains have end up being digested. Next trade I took was Tesla. I took a day trade long on this, and I took it again also on the 11th. So stock had made a nice little move up higher and then had pulled back to VWAP. So I did miss the entry kind of somewhere over here, maybe 342, 343. Could make a push up, get $1 or two. But it got over here, so I bid lower at 343.20. So I got filled on this red candle. Then it sold off over here, so it's down $5 on it. The stock did pop up, and it took gains on the open at 345.20. So I took a $2 gain on that guy. Because again, market had gapped up on the open, didn't know what would happen, but I also knew Tesla didn't exactly do what I expected it to do. I thought it would hold this pivot low here, but it did not. So the fact that it didn't hold a pivot low means I had to get out for a profit if I could. So that was my plan on Tesla, and managed to take some profits by holding that one overnight. And I also took it later in the day in this last hour, so I had to be willing to hold it overnight because I was entering pretty late, and if it went against me, that was pretty much my only way to win on that trade. So let's go to 8/12. This is CPI day. And on 8/12, I had taken just one trade, actually, on Duolingo. So I'll pull this guy up again. Okay, so we are back in Duolingo, and let's go to this chart. Okay, so I shorted it at the 12th, and I took a short at 11:51. So I took it, kind of right around here is when I shorted Duolingo. And I took a short at 324.36. Whoops. Had a accidentally preloaded meta there. So I took it at 324.46 as I saw, okay, well, we have this compression sort of breaking here, this upward sloping trend line breaking. Stock had been rejecting off of VWAP while the market had been rallying at 11:45, and we looked like we had a bear cross coming in on the market. So I figured that, all right, well, this stock has a lot of volume, a lot of bearishness here, had broken through its SMAs, and through also this prior low around 330-ish, 331. And it had room to this gap fill coming up kind of over here. So I like the stock, and I figured that as soon as the market stalls, then it should start to slow down here. So market did keep on chugging along, and I did not get my fill until this 140 candle when I got out at 324.25. So it took a very tiny 11-cent gain on the stock, and it did end up flushing to the low of the day, and would have hit my original target, which was somewhere around like 320 something. So again, on Duolingo, I ended up bailing a little too early on this guy, but my rationale for doing that was that this stock hadn't really moved in 2 hours, and the market was still strong. So I didn't know if we would get this break to the upside and have to take a loss, or if the stock would continue lower and actually start testing that low of the day or not. So I just had my target out after about an hour or so, an hour and a half. I had my target out for basically a scratch Because for some reason I thought I entered at 324.26, so that's why I put it at 324.25. But I actually ended out. I got out at 324. 36, or got in at 324.36. So I ended up actually having a little bigger profit, 11 cents. So I will take that win. But that was my only trade on that day. I find these days kind of actually difficult to trade because market never really pulls back. So it always sort of feels like you're chasing in the trade. You kind of just have to find a good stock that you can get in on maybe a dip, or you'd have to get in the move pretty early and then ride a nice chunk of that move. But it's kind of tough because stock never actually closes below the 8 EMA until later in the day. You can see in this last hour and a half, it actually compresses. But over here, you got all these short sellers that get squeezed out. We push up higher, and it's just this tiny little grinding price action that every red candle, okay, you think this is the one that's going to roll over, and then we gobble it up, and then red candle, gobble it up, red candle, gobble it up. So you really just have to stick with the moves, and ideally you get in here earlier in the day, assuming the breakout holds and you can ride it up. Okay, let's do the 13th here. We have a gap up and a bit of a bearish day that ends up fizzling out. And I don't think this was, no, yeah, that wasn't the PPI day. That was Thursday. So on the 13th, I took 6 trades, it looks like. We're going to start with the first one, which was on. I'd shorted this a couple of times, actually, this week and last week. So on, yeah, shorted this on the 13th over here. See post earnings gap up, sold off here, was kind of chopping around in its between its EMAs. Oh, sorry, I have a different chart for that. Yep. So basically, market had gapped up and then was starting to sell off here on flat open, and then was starting to sell off. So I was day trade short 2 shares. Day trade short 2 shares at 47. Or sorry, just 1 share. My bad. Day trade short 1 share, 47.60, which was on the 1035 candle. You can see here 47.60. Where was? Oh, here we go. Yeah. So I got short. Yeah, kind of somewhere right here at 1035. So on the close of this candle, I got short, and I got filled actually on the pullback of this candle 47.60. We got the move that went against me, or that went in my favor. Sorry, and then stock. The market started to sell off over here, pushing to the low of the day. This stock started to stall, so I actually got out at 47.40 here for a 20-cent gain. And I got out at 11 o'clock. So yeah, on the close of this candle, because it was started compressing, I wanted to see this actually push lower on this 1055 candle. You can see how the market was actually pushing lower to a new low of the day here. So it's getting its relative strength, and I figured, all right, well, look, it's a choppy stock. It's probably going to pull back, so I'll take a small gain now and maybe reload on like a VWAP bounce later in the day. So I took the gains, watching to see if it kind of fell in, and it kind of did over here, but it had only rallied up a pretty good amount from this high, and it got through VWAP. So I'm not as keen on taking that short because it's not really a strong sign that it's going to produce that day. And you can see it broke through VWAP and actually had to come back and test it. So took a 20-cent gain on other trade I took short was GE. And so there's GE on the 13th. And for some reason on some of the charts, the 14th data is missing on the D1. So not exactly sure what's going on there, but that's why I'm just kind of a heads up there. So GE, again, super bearish chart, really selling off here. Industrials were weak. I got in day trade short at 12.20 which was, let's find that candle. Yeah, so basically, he had a nice little compression break to a new low of the day. I got in at 265.90. So maybe I could get a slightly better bid at 266. But stock didn't really move too much over here initially. So I exited at 1220 at 264.50 for a 40-cent gain. And I think I took it this 1235 candle right over here. Stock was compressing again, and it made a big move. It had broken through this low plus trend line over here. There's also a VWAP E that's coming into play, so it probably likely test that. But I felt I had room at least to 261 on this guy, and it did produce a little bit. You can see produced a little bit more over here at 1245, but then the stock rebounded and came all the way back to VWAP over there. So yeah, took a small 40-cent gain on GE at 1220, and if I look at what the market did at 1220, you can see that we had basically this move here. Stock didn't really rally during the bullish cycle, so I was waiting for the bearish cycle to produce. You can see it also didn't really produce. Marginal new low. This move was pretty weak because we got green candles in here. The red candles aren't very strong, and then you can see the tide. Excuse me. You can see the tide starting to turn when we get red candle unable to advance, gobbled up. Another red candle unable to advance, gets gobbled up, and we know that support is being established over here. Versus I needed to see some stronger price action quicker that not only filled in the gap, but actually managed to start to break through it. And we didn't really see that, right? You can see that this gap held, and we weren't able to break through that level. So another similar play, similar time, similar exit here is Dash. Big post-earn bear on the 13th. Had rejected off of that AVWAP E and had also had that gap fill as support and had gotten through its 8 and 15 EMAs over here. So Dash was a pretty nice one. Yep, so where is this on the 13th? Yep, so it broken through this prior day low, which was kind of like right around, if you look at where the stock is, kind of right around here. This low is 251.13. So 251.13, you can see that's right where the prior day low is. So it had broken through there at the 1205 candle. And I got in on Dash at the 1220 candle at 250.75. So kind of in the middle of this range. Again, market didn't really move too strongly. This stock also didn't move too strongly. So I exited for a 1 cent gain at 250.75. And I got out on the 1245 candle. So you can see that some of these trades are a lot quicker, shorter, like 20-minute trades, because I'm not trying to overstay my welcome on the short side. I'm taking a couple more trades on the long side, and a lot more hit and run kind of vibes. Like I need the move to kind of produce. I need the market to cooperate, and if it doesn't happen in a quick time frame, then I'm getting out of the trade. So sometimes, right, I'll leave a little meat in the bones, but a lot of times I end up avoiding a lot of stocks that end up would-be losers had I held them longer, and it would have been a lot harder to scratch out of this guy. I mean, maybe at 150, here's my chance to scratch out, or get out at the low of the day tomorrow. But again, I'm going to stop. It's a strong move. I need the market to produce. I'm also not getting that pullback bounce off UAP, so I have to wait, take some more heat to support. So just more of a trickier situation. So got out of Dash over there, and then I pivoted to the long side after I saw the market was starting to establish some support. I was long AMD. Again, I'm whipping the wrong chart here. Clear the orders here. So it's one of my open positions right now. But I went long AMD. It had broken out through this compression here. So ideally somewhere here would be the right time to get in long. Somewhere closer to, yeah, at least get a better price than 184.79. So I ended up getting in on AMD at 185, which because I thought, all right, this is gonna dip here, maybe it tests the 8 EMA, but I thought this candle would be preserved, so 185 would be pretty good, and to have maybe $1 or so of room to the high of the day. Stock pulls back, it's testing its VWAP, bounces up here, and then it does get rejected. Or sorry. What happens here? It actually breaks through VWAP, and then it comes back and retests it. And on this retest is actually when I get out of the position at 183.51. Because I was like, all right, I think it's gonna break, retest, and then probably continue to the lower of the day. So I don't need to be hanging around to that guy. I'm just gonna get out of the position and move on. It did end up rebounding, so I could have maybe taken like a my best case would have been I would have missed my 1 cent exit, which I would have gotten maybe the next day. So I mean, I liked it. The one warning sign on AMD was that we had made a pretty swift strong rejection from the high of the day that actually cracked and made a new low of the day, which is a little bit tells you that there is some selling pressure at that level. And usually, right, this bounce, it's probably going to need at least a double bottom to try to get out. And you can see we got a couple of tests of that support, but the stock was unable to break or hold that level, and then fell lower later. So maybe that's kind of a warning sign that I felt, all right, well, look, it's a gap up. It's going to test this naturally. This is a marginal new low. And it did break compression, so I thought it was a decent chance, but didn't quite end up panning out on that one. So took the loss over here, $1.50 loss on AMD. And then I closed the day on the 13th with 2 trades on Reddit. So Reddit, really nice D1 chart. Again, it's missing the 14th here. So we're going to get to that in a second. First trade on Reddit that I took. All right, so I went long on Reddit at the 144 candle. So I went long because if you look at the stock, right, strong stock, 8 EMA bounce, right, 8 EMA bounce. So here's this little pullback to the 8 EMA, and then we get a pop from there. So when it started to break it, kind of go over here at 140. I know the market has found support, so I want to have some of that tailwind in my favor. So I went long on AMD at this 140 candle. And I went long at, or no, sorry, not AMD, my bad, at Reddit. I went long at 235.65. And I took gains at 237.65 when I got the pop up. Oh, sorry, 235.65. I got out at 236.65. My bad. And that happened in about 10 minutes as it broke through this high of the day right here. And then I got my fill at 236.65. So that was a nice little pop off the 8 EMA. The stock then did pull back later in the day, and when it started to break above the 8 EMA, I took another long on Reddit at 235.50. Stock was kind of chopping around. See the market, kind of rallying here, but not really. And Reddit making a lot of these kind of tiny-bodied tails above body. So I got out of the stock at 235.87. for a 37-cent gain, and I got out a couple minutes later. I got out at the 319 candle, so right over here, where I was like, all right, well, I expected this to continue and make a jump up. I could take another $1 or $2 pretty quickly, but did not end up happening. It started to stall here, which tells me that there was some resistance. So took a small gain in the position and moved to the back to the sidelines. Okay, let's look at the 14th, and let's go back to Reddit because I also traded Reddit again on the 14th. So stock market had gapped down in PPI. Reddit had pulled Reddit's pulling back, and the market had a decent sell-off over here. Pull back to VWAP. So I did buy Reddit at I got in at 242. So you can see that this stock was fine. It was kind of compressing here. So I got filled at 242, which is kind of right above this compression support. Stock pulled back through VWAP, came back above VWAP, and I was really watching this low of the day, right? And I need to see it sort of pivot and be a marginally low. So we got that, right? You can see buyers. All right, we're actually starting to make some higher highs at this juncture, and we're starting to break through this downward sloping trend line. So this tells that, okay, well, look, we've digested some of the move. The stock did pull back, but ended up getting a little bit too early on the pullback, so had to hold throughout the rest of the cycle. And then I added to the position at 240.50. I added to the position. And let me just check the time on that add. Give me 1 second. Okay, added at 2 o'clock. Yes, this candle right here. The close of this candle I added at 240.50. And I added here, you can see stock was making higher lows, and it actually started to make higher highs as well. So I was like, all right, I've added, and this is a chance to go and surge against the high of the day. Stock kind of compressing, and then finally starting to get some lift off later in the day. Just grinding up higher. So I ended up taking a dollar gain at 242.25. So once I added the position, I had a 2x position at 241.25. Stock was basically grinding around that position, but it was slowly just digesting the gains and trying to push up higher. And then we got this move here, and we got this dip back down. So then on the pop back up over here on this dip, because I was like, well, it hasn't really rallied as strong as I would have liked it to, especially on, this move over here, right? You would think this would have been a lot stronger, but stock didn't really start to take off with that, which tells us that, all right, well, there's still some selling pressure here. So I'm going to try to take some gains on a nice dollar, but took a nice dollar on 2x, which was a nice win. It was just a good trade management on my part. Other trade I took that day was, I guess maybe I'll go back to on here, because I was also short on. And then I'll bring up Netflix. So on. Yeah, looks like it's not showing Thursday for whatever reason. But on Thursday, very bearish chart on this guy. So, right, you can see market had gapped up and went on, gap and go down on the PPI news. So this was a pretty weak sector. I got in at 10.15, and that was at 45.13. I was short on, and let me just find this guy here. I was short 2 shares at 45.20. On had pulled back, and then it had pushed lower to a new low of the day. I was trying to add in here, but I didn't quite get my add off. So I took gains at 44.97, which was kind of right around here. Took gains at 44.97. So nice little 23-cent gain on that guy. And look, yeah, obviously it did continue lower. So we're not going to get the whole perfect spread of the move. And some people can panic out on these green solos that this one got smacked down, which meant that we're going to be going lower. But yeah, definitely a win when the stock starts to stall out here for a while. Not a bad place to take some gains and reevaluate. So this definitely had some room, probably an 80-cent winner in my guy over here. Looks like probably even a buck that potentially could have taken there. But took nice 20 cents on that guy. So just kind of adding to the win. That had some nice price action this week and last week that I was able to trade. Okay, Netflix. All right. We'll trade this on the 14th, so this D1 candle is clearly not showing. But here's the M5 price action on the 14th. So market has pulled back. Netflix held up pretty well on this pullback. The important thing here, though, is that we have some resistance at this high, 1246.50 and 1248.50. So there's some resistance here, which means I got to be careful. So had broken through that 50 SMA, had found some support and was rallying at 11:30. See when the market started to rally over here. Right here's 11:30. So before the market had really, it was still kind of finding its footing. Netflix was doing pretty good. Got in on the trade at 12:39, and my plan was to take maybe $4 or $5 in this. Ended up taking $3.56. I got out at 12:42.56 at the 12:16 candle, right over here. And that was because I felt that, Netflix kind of struggling through the high of the day over here, and I was also wrong on the market. Market had made a new relative low, so I was like, well, the downtrend's still continuing. I don't know if Netflix is going to keep going up. So I took my $3.56 gain and then stepped to the sideline. So both of those combined made for a nice day on one share. But yeah, I mean, that was Netflix, just a quick little trade from here all the way to here, grab some of that move, and then back on the sidelines. 8:15, last day. So I traded Meta, and looks like I got out of that at the right time. So 8:15, market gap up, sold off in these first, in these first four candles. Meta was compressing in those first four candles, and as soon as the market started to stall over here, this stock was moving on some heavy volume. So had broken through some support over here, around this 170.50 basically was one little level, and also had some room to this prior all-time high at 795. So I was like, all right, quick momentum trade. I'm going to take maybe a quick $2 to $3 on this guy. And then I'll get to the sidelines and try to get in on a VWAP entry. So got in at 791, candle produced, and I was targeting 793.50, which I did get on the open of this next candle, hit 793.50 and took some nice gains. So again, it was kind of just like hey, the stock is strong. I can get a quick $2 or $3 in this in the stock, and then get out of the way because I don't want to mess with it at resistance. I could have held like another $1 or so, but I mean, one thing I'm really emphasizing for a lot of these trades is like you don't have to be perfect. Like you're not gonna get every single dollar of the move, but you just have to be consistently right and good enough. So took $1.50 on Meta. Last day trade of the week was on SLNO. This was a big post-earn smackdown, and I took basically a D1 bullish gap reversal play. So stock big gap down, tested 200 SMA, and then it had made a new high of the day on some nice consistent price action. The prior day, a VWAP was at $71, so that was my target. And that tends to be a pretty good point of rest for the stock, where it pulls back and checks the liquidity there. Institutions might offload some shares from those earnings. So I got in at the 1035 candle at $69, and then I just rode the trade up until it hit that prior day VWAP at $71. And you can see how the market did end up kind of chopping around that level, right? So here is my exit's kind of right over here. So kind of chopped around here. Not that much meat on the bone that I left on the table. And that was it for the rest of the day. I mean, this day was pretty LPTE, not a lot going on. A lot of stocks are dead. So just finding some stocks ended up going earlier in the day, which was unplanned, but I was just looking for good trades throughout the day, and if I saw it, I would take it. And then I saw that one early in the day, and then I also saw SLNO set up as well after the first hour. So that has some nice upside to that as well. Those are all the day trades. So let's take a look at the open positions. I'm going to start with bull first, since that's the longest open position that I've had. And maybe I'm going to pull up the D1 chart on bull over here, since this is not quite cooperating. Okay, so bull, you can see, is in this compression over here. We got some AVWAPs coming into play, just chopping around through all of this this garbage here, which is fine because I got a poor man's covered call. So if it's chopping around, I can sell puts, sell calls once it hits the 16 level, out of the money calls. When it falls down, right, I'm basically chilling, take some nice profits on those. So for bull this week, let's see what I did. So last week I'd sold the August 15th 1850 calls for 27 cents, and then I exited that short call for 24 cents. So, for a 24-cent gain. So I exited at a 3-cent debit. And then when bull, if I actually come it over here, so bull hit a really big jump up over here, and then put in this nice bearish hammer. That's when I sold the 822 18 calls for a 27-cent credit. So again, that puts me above my entry price, right, which was kind of around over here. So I know that if it does smack up on 18 and I end up having to close the position out, I can take a nice gain overall. So yeah, so basically collected 24 cents a premium. So the total premium that I've collected so far is 61 cents, which has offset most of the premium that I have on my long calls, which is about 70 cents. So I should be in the green on that premium this week, and then just continue to reduce my cost basis as it goes on. So now if the stock does start to make a strong move this week, I'm okay with closing those short calls for a scratch or a small loss, because I want to try to ride the position as much as I can. So if it starts to make strong moves here, I have to hold off on the calls that I have, and maybe sell really distant calls so I can still maintain the integrity of the position. Okay. So that is bull. Other trade I took over here was open. So here is open, and it had a really nice move on Thursday where it had broken through basically a whole bunch of high volume candles, high volume highs and lows, as well as this all-time high AV, not this all-time high AVWAP, I should say. I think that's definitely untrue, but just this relative high AVWAP. So strong parabolic move on some volume, came back over here, compressed, found some support on this low, 175, let's call it, and stock is now pushing up higher and going to look to test that that IPO AVWAP, which is automatically drawn, so that should be accurate within 10 cents or so. But yeah, so had a gap up immediately on the next day. And let me just pull this up here. Where is open? Okay, so I am long the November 21st $1.50 calls for $1.60, 3 contracts. So I have about 10 cents of premium per contract. So I took that, and then I simultaneously sold the 822 $4 calls for a 17-cent credit, which makes my whole net debit 143. So that'll basically cancel out my premium and reduce the cost basis on the intrinsic. So yeah, I'm going to keep that up here. This gapped up over here, so my position was in profit on open. But stock is just compressing. So the true way I'll know it's going to be parabolic is if we see this red candle that I have here instantly gobbled up the next day and starts to push up higher. So if that happens, then I may consider getting out of the short calls and try to scratch out of them. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe it has to stall out for a day or two. Maybe it comes back and tests this prior AVWAP. I don't really know. But there's not really a lot to me standing in the way of this guy until $4. So that is some pretty clear. Look at this high. Yeah, $3.99. So there's some pretty clear resistance around 4. And I can lean on that for my short call. So just going to stick with that. Bullet open, I can stick with that for a longer period of time. They're going to be a little bit more market agnostic. They're a longer time frame. And my downside is limited to my debit. So even if both of these positions go awry, I mean, that's a $680. I mean, at this point, it's a $600 loss on a bull, and then on open, it's like a $450 loss. So it's only like a 2.5% max risk here being allocated. And I think to me, these are both some nice high probability trades where the longer I stay in the trade, just the lower my risk is going to be, and then the higher my profit potential is going to be. So these are trades that reward just sticking with that sort of position. Last trade I am in is AMD. So I took an overnight swing over here on the 13th. So I'm going to pull up AMD on this chart. So AMD, it was a fairly normal overnight swing setup. I did mention maybe one thing I could have potentially missed, which is that, all right, I mean, this is kind of a bearish move down, a bit stronger than I prefer. I prefer this VWAP holding. So to me, this is just a check of that gap. And then, potentially a push up higher. But stock was compressing at VWAP. It was holding its own pretty well. So I got in near the end of the day, a full position at 183.75. When the stock had a close above this high plus trend line over here at 350, I added to the position 50%, 23 shares at 184.50. So I had a 1.5x position at 184. Next day, market had gapped down on PPI and then rallied back up pretty quickly. You can see in the first 3 candles, and I was in profit for about $1 or so. And I figured, all right, well, look, if the market's going to rally, this stock's going to rally this strong off support while the market is kind of struggling to get off the deck, then I should stick with the position. Then AMD sold off, and market was rallying higher, which tells me that, all right, well, there is some stock resistance happening over here. And I gotta be a little more prudent, or maybe a little more passive on the target. That's the right word for that. So stock market kind of flat, gap up, kind of flat the rest of the day. Stock is pulling back over here and just testing that 8 EMA. So down in the position right now, but I'm not super worried. If I take the loss, I'll make it back. I have quite a bit of support that I'm leaning on right over here. So it has to really break through a whole lot of that. And it's a strong stock, so I feel like I can lean on this guy over here over time and get out of the position if I need to. But my plan right now on AMD is I want to get out of this position before Jackson Hole. I believe this 8 EMA and this trend is going to stay intact. We have quite a bit of support that I'm leaning on over here all the way to 172. And I think I can take up to probably 174-ish. So that's probably the max pain I can take on that before I may have to get out of the position. But probably probably have to do something like hold it a couple days or something. And this is sort of in this bearish channel now since it had broken through this support. So my plan is on a bounce on the stock, right? If I can get out 183, take $1-ish loss on that. I'm fine with that. If I can take $1.50 loss on that, I'm cool with that. So if I can just get out for a better loss than what it is right now, I think I'll be in a good position on the trade. And just has to take some time. So obviously it's like, hey, look, I could have taken that dollar initially on the overnight, but given the information I had, I felt that this had a chance to surge higher, and I could have taken some nice big profits. Didn't happen, so just have to be patient. I know that if you look at AMD and I clear out some of these drawings, I mean, this is a pretty strong D1 chart, right? And it's hitting if it's stalling a little bit here, it's going to stall for a little while maybe, and maybe stall and compress before NVIDIA earnings, which are going to be in 2 weeks. And NVIDIA is stalling, and if I look at SMH is also stalling a little bit over here after a pretty nice run. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to completely tank on me here. Again, I have this upward sloping trend line to lean on, some of the support to lean on, so just got to be patient on AMD. That is it for the week. Those were all the trades I took, swing, day, and open. Hope this is helpful for you guys, and I will continue to post these trades and obviously these weekly videos, for the rest of the quarter and seeing how we're doing. But so far, so good. I think we have 5 green weeks this quarter in a row. So, I think I'm probably going to take a red week at some point, but right now, I think the day trading at one share is giving me a lot of confidence, and my overnight swings have been doing pretty well, and just kind of getting comfortable with the idea that, all right, I mean, I'm not going to be perfect on getting these swings. Like you can see on Apple, I missed some profits earlier. On Google, it's like, oh, I should have taken out half and stuff like that, but, you can't get perfect on every situation. It's just doing good enough on all the situations where you can still make money, and still made 1% on the account today despite all of the quote unquote errors that I made. So that's what I'm trying to do, just leaning on my analysis, my stock picks, and trusting my ads and stuff, and leaning on that analysis to get me pretty far. Okay, I will see you all next week. Thanks for watching.